All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy Halpin. I am an elder here at Connection Point Church, and I am also the twin brother of our pastor. Now, some of y'all, this is the time you get a little disappointed. I know you're like, Joel's not preaching, so bear with me, though. Hopefully I'll do all right today, all right? All right, funny story. Yesterday, Joel is safely back from Peru. The whole Peru team is back, as I mentioned. So we're glad that y'all are here safely. I heard y'all had some travel nightmares last night, but we're glad God got you back here in one piece. That's the important thing. It was funny because yesterday my son Owen, we were talking, and he was like, "Why are you preaching tomorrow?" And I was like, "Well, Joel is on a mission trip. He's just getting back." And it's like, "But he'll actually be there in the morning." He's coming by. And it's like, "Well, why can't he preach? He's going to be there." And I'm like, "Yeah, but he was away for a week, so he's just got back in town." So today I'm going to be preaching on the story of Samson. The story of Samson is found in Judges chapter 13 through 17. So it's going to be a little different today, as I'm going to cover a lot of text. But the story of Samson, it's a story I heard a lot more when I was a kid. I haven't heard it a lot as an adult. A couple of reasons for that. I think as a kid, I think it kind of makes sense. They can see it. They see the superhuman strength of a man. They see he's almost superhero-like. And so they can kind of get on board with that. They see Samson as maybe like the Christian version of the Hulk, so I think it's a story you hear in like children's Sunday schools and whatnot. But as a kid, haven't heard a whole lot of as an adult, I haven't heard a whole lot of sermons on Samson. I haven't actually even read the story of Samson that many times as an adult. Mainly that's because it's in the book of Judges, and I don't really go back and read the book of Judges. I don't know how many of y'all do that on a regular basis. But also, it's just something that you kind of think from what you remember as a kid, it doesn't really seem applicable to your adult life that much. But as I was going through reading the story of Samson, it got me thinking, it's kind of odd that we tell our kids this story. It really is. It's cool that he has superhuman strength, but as we're going to get into it today, he's a very, very flawed individual. He has a lot of issues going on in his life. And there are a lot of topics that we're going to, get hit on in this story that we're not going to go into detail, but it's kind of odd that we tell kids. We're going to talk about mass murder. We're going to talk about suicide. We're going to talk about, there's a little prostitution in there. There's a very odd story of animal cruelty that, is like just crazy. So it's kind of odd that we tell our kids this story. When you read it in detail. It's when they do it over in the children's area, I'm guessing they don't read Judges 13 through 17 in detail. They probably just do the overview of the story. Because I'll tell you what I remember is about Samson being taught as a kid. Here you have this big muscular guy, right, who has a lot of just strength, can do whatever he wants. And as long as he doesn't cut his hair, he's going to have this strength, right? That's about what y'all remember from a kid. And unfortunately, he makes a mistake. He lets him cut his hair, and then he loses his strength, and end of story, basically. And when I got to thinking, I guess it's kind of a cool story. A guy with super strength. It'd be a cool movie. I'd go see the movie, right? But even when you think about it, it's kind of an odd meaning. Like, what's the meaning? What's the purpose of the whole story? What are we teaching people when we tell them the story of Samson? Most of the things you got taught as a kid was like, yeah, be nice to one another, love one another, or whatnot. But what do you remember? What's the real purpose of the story of Samson? If you could almost get a wrong meaning, a wrong purpose of it, of here's this guy who makes one mistake in life, right? He gets his hair cut, so God walks away from him, God abandons him, God leaves him to himself, and only gets redeemed after he's been through this period of torment or torture, right, where he's been humbled enough, basically, that God would be like, all right, I'll forgive you, That's almost what you could get out of the story, right? But it's kind of a wrong view of God. So when I was reading this story and decided to preach on Samson, it came to me, okay, Samson's a lot more like us today than you think. He some of the choices he makes, you see people make today. Some of the choices we make, I mean, we're a lot like Samson. But when I say that, I definitely don't mean superhuman strength. I definitely don't have superhuman strength, okay? As a kid, I was always kind of, I was a scrawny kid, I'll be honest. I was small, skinny, one of the skinnier kids in my grade. My son Owen, he's going into ninth grade, and he's about 5'9" or so, and weighs about 110. That was about me in high school going into ninth grade, and I was playing basketball. And I remember when we go in there, the coach looks at us to see how all skinny the team is and how scrawny we are, and he's basically says, I need to strengthen y'all up. So he takes us into the weight room one day, and y'all remember those weight rooms when you were a kid that had the machine weights that had 4 sides? One side was a bench press, one side's a leg press, and one side you did the tricep thing. And so he's going to have us all lift weights one day. First time I probably ever lifted weights in my life. And basically, the lowest setting was to bench press just 72 pounds, I think. And then it goes up every 12 pounds, every weight you add. So 84, 96, 108. And I remember along with a couple other kids, could barely get the 72 pounds up. I'm not going to say it didn't look good at all, probably. A few kids could probably get up 84 pounds or whatnot, but we were weak. And as you could get away with 25 years ago, the coach basically tried to humiliate us all. He goes and he grabs this girl who's 2 years older than us, and he brings the girl in and he says, show these guys how to lift weights, and she bench presses 120 pounds, and so he basically shames us all into, I don't know what he shamed us into, just that we were weak. We need to get stronger. So when I talk about the story of Samson, I don't mean super strength. That's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how tragic Samson's life is. And when I compare this to us, I don't mean that my life is tragic. I don't mean that your life is tragic. What you're going to see is Samson's life. He makes a series of choices, a series of what you could call mistakes that basically have him on a path away from God. He's not a guy who makes one mistake in his life, and that mistake ends up leading to his demise. No, he's a guy who's going to make a series of choices in his life that are going to lead him away from God. And the sad thing about Samson is I don't even think he realizes he's doing it. He's just making these small choices. And when I say small choices, small mistakes today, I don't even always necessarily mean sin. Some of them are just that. They're just choices. They're just things that you choose to do. But in and of themselves, you look and you're like, it's not really a sin. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how easy it is to make these mistakes and get on a path in life away from God and not even know that you're on the path. And so let's kind of get into the story of Samson. But before I do that, let me give you a little background. Samson, he lives in a time after the nation of Israel has entered the promised land, but before Saul is anointed the first king of Israel. So you have this time period of God is raising up these people called judges. That's the book of Judges. And judges are not expert lawyers or, like you would think of a judge today. What it means is a judge is a deliverer. It's someone who is going to come deliver the nation of Israel. And Samson, so what you have going on is during this time, you have the nation of Israel, basically, they're in this cycle. Basically, they sin, they walk away from God in some way, they rebel, basically, and walk away from God. And because of their rebellion, they go through some period of punishment or some period of persecution that they experience. And then God sends a deliverer, God sends a judge, basically, to help redeem the nation of Israel. That's what you have going on. You have this cycle. You have all these judges in the book of Judges. They're not all superhuman strength as just Samson. All the judges had their unique gift, basically, in how they delivered the nation of Israel. But Samson he was physically strong. And so when the nation of Israel entered the promised land, there were all these other nations there, and they were told to basically remove all of those nations, to remove the people there, but they didn't do it. And so you have these people living in the nation of Israel called the Philistines. And basically what's happening right now is they've rebelled. These Philistines are basically ruling over the nation of Israel, terrorizing them basically, and so they call out to God for a deliverer. And we can see that. So we're going to be in Judges 13 through 17. If you're reading along in the Bibles that we have, it's page 137. If you're in the Connection Point app, Joey put it in the app. So if you go to sermons, or you can just on your phone find Judges 13. And we can see right off the bat, it says, the people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord gave them into the hands of the Philistines. And so, doesn't say what evil they did. Don't know what they did, but they've done evil. So they've rebelled. They're giving them to the hands of the Philistines. They're in this time of punishment, basically. And what I think happened here, as far as what they did, I think how the Israelites are living, we're probably going to see, is they're probably not that different than Samson. They probably just made a ton of little choices in their life to kind of go their own way, to these little choices that took them away from God and basically found themselves away from God. That's what I think happened with the nation of Israel. So when you get into it there in Judges 13, it starts, at the beginning it saying Samson's mom was barren and was unable to have children. But then this angel of the Lord comes to her and says, hey, you're going to have a son and he's going to be a Nazirite. Most of the chapter goes back and forth with her encounter and her husband's encounter with the angel of the Lord. It's really probably not that uncommon than you think. Most people who have the angel, did he really tell me we're going to have a kid? Go back and forth. And oh yeah, we're going to have a kid. What does he want? But when he says that you're going to have this kid and he's going to be a Nazirite, to her that wouldn't have been like to you or I. You say, hey, you're going to have a son. He's going to be a Nazirite. Be like, great, what the heck is that? You'd have no idea. I had no idea. But they would have known because in the law, it basically lays out what it means to be a Nazirite. And to be a Nazirite is basically anyone could become a Nazirite. To be a Nazirite is basically someone who says, I'm going to take the vow to do three things, and that vow is going to be for a set amount of time. It's going to, it could be for 30 days, could be for 60 days, 90 days. You set the amount of time you want to do this vow, and you vow in three things. You're not going to do three things. One is you're not going to cut your hair. That's Samson. We all know that, right? He's not going to cut his hair. He's going to let it grow. The other three things of a Nazirite vow is you're not going to eat of the grapevine. You're not going to eat a grape. You're not going to drink wine. You're just not going to do anything of the grapevine, right? And then the third part is you're not going to make yourself unclean by coming into the presence of a dead body. Even if your mother or father passed away, you're not allowed to go in the room to kind of pay your respects. So you got to distance yourself from dead bodies. Three things of the vow. And the whole point of the Nazirite vow is that you are setting yourself apart. You are setting yourself apart to live differently. So that when people look at you, they think, that guy's living differently, and his actions are going to point me towards God. That's basically why you would become a Nazirite, is you're going to vow, hey, I'm going to live differently. That sounds familiar, right? I mean, we see that. We see that the nation of Israel, right? The whole point of the nation of Israel was, here's this nation of God's people, basically, that were supposed to live in such a way that when God saw the nation of Israel, or when other nations saw the nation of Israel and saw how God was blessing them, they'd be pointed to God, right? That was what the nation of Israel was supposed to be. For those of us who claim to be followers of Christ, that's basically what being a Christian is, right? We're claiming that we're going to live differently. We are going to, because of our relationship with Jesus Christ, we are going to live differently in such a way that when people see us, they are going to be pointed towards Jesus. I mean, that's a lot of God's plan in the Bible, is for man, because of our relationship with God, to live in such a way that when those who don't know God see us, they're pointed to God. So if Nazirite is somebody who's taking that vow, I'm going to live differently. That's basically what's happening. A little bit different with Samson. Most people would take that Nazirite vow themselves. I mean, that's what it talks about in the book of Numbers. However, with Samson, he was chosen by God. He was told upon birth, you're going to be a Nazirite. So he was called to be a Nazirite, but really, same three vows were supposed to be on his life for his entire life. And when Samson was young, I think he probably adhered to this vow pretty strictly. And I'll tell you why I think that. Because it says in Judges chapter 13, verse 24, and the young man grew, and the Lord blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir in him. before I get into that, I'm going to tell you, this is a great sermon for y'all if y'all don't want to pay attention because it's a lot of text, 13 through 17. You can open your Bible, you can put your head down, and you can just act like you're reading the whole thing. So y'all have to do whatever you need to do here. But it says the young man grew. So if you finish chapter 13, basically what you get is, here is this lady who couldn't have a kid, and angel of the Lord comes to her, says, you're going to have a kid, he's going to be a Nazarite, and you see that this Nazarite basically is blessed by God. That's how chapter 13 ends. So you think, hey, great, here's this person that God is raising up, this deliverer who's going to deliver the nation of Israel. Chapter 13 ends, just, you would think, oh, all's good. You would expect as a story in the Bible, right? But then we get to chapter 14, and here's where you get into detail of the life of Samson, and we're going to go through some crazy stuff today. But basically, he's going to make a series of choices, again, they're not all sins, but just a series of mistakes, wrong choices, mistakes that he's going to make in life that are going to lead him away from God. And I will tell you that these don't necessarily, these have four mistakes that I've kind of pulled out from the text today. They don't necessarily build on each other, so it's not like you make one and it leads you to two and it leads you to three. I mean, you could really make any of them, Some of them will build upon each other in Samson's life, but really it's just four things that I think mistakes Samson made, and I think are common to people today, that if we aren't actively thinking of these things in our life, we're prone to make these same sort of mistakes. First one is right off the bat. We see Samson, it says, basically says, Samson went down to Timnah to basically see a girl. And let me tell you what Timnah is. Timnah is not a town that has a very good reputation in the Bible, okay? When we go through here, Timnah is, it is a city in the nation of Israel. However, at this point in time, it seems to be controlled by the Philistines. It seems to be, they're still living in the land, so this seems to be pretty much a Philistine city, okay? And when you look at Timnah, you see there's a lot of prostitution that goes on there. You're going to see here in a little bit, there's a little wagering as often goes on here in the city of Timnah. But probably just going to Timnah in and of itself is not a sin, But what Samson's about to do here, let me tell you one other story about Samson. I'm not going to go through the story, but it's fascinating. If you go to Genesis, if you want to know more about Timnah, there's a crazy story just kind of stuck in the middle of Genesis when a guy named Judah goes there. You can go read that one on your own. That's a little tidbit. But it kind of goes to the reputation of Timnah. And it's just not a lot of good said about it in the Bible from what I could find. But this is the first mistake that he's making. It's a Philistine city, basically, and Samson is an Israelite. The Philistines are the enemies of the Israelites. He's about to walk into enemy territory and basically walk straight up to temptation. And that is the first mistake that Samson makes. That's a mistake that I think we are prone to do in life. We are prone to sometimes walk right up to temptation and think, well, I'm not going to sin. I'm just going to get myself right there. I'm not going to cross the line. I'm just going to walk right up to that edge, And we think we can handle it. We think we can walk into enemy territory, basically, and say, I got this. And that's the first mistake that Samson's going to make. Let me tell you, he makes this mistake again. Look at verse 5 there. It says, we see it again. It says, he and his parents basically came to the vineyards at Timnah. Okay? Think about this. What was that vow? Three vows, right? We're not going to eat of the grape. We're not going to drink wine. Why is a guy who has vowed to live differently going to a vineyard? It's basically what he's done. I'm not going to do this, but he's gone to the vineyard. And so let's say even if he doesn't sin, he doesn't do anything here. It doesn't necessarily say he did. But you think if somebody sees him, they say, he's a Nazarite. That means he's done three things, but I see him in a vineyard. What do you think they're going to think? They're going to think, I don't know what he's doing over there. Do you think his witness, does he look set apart when he's in the vineyard? And that's the thing. Sometimes we walk right up to that edge. We say, hey, I'm not supposed to eat, I'm not supposed to drink of it, but hey, I can go to the vineyard, right? And so that's where we see Samson. He made the first choice. He's walked straight up to temptation. And some of these things in our life, it's not always a physical place. I'm not saying it's a physical place where we go. We do it emotionally. We do it spiritually. We go to these places in life that right up to the edge where we probably shouldn't do it, Now, there's some debate over about how many times Samson broke this Nazirite vow in his life, and whether or not he broke it. I read some scholars who believe he broke the Nazirite vow many, many times in his life. I saw some scholars who think, no, he only broke the Nazirite vow the one time when he cut his hair. And I even read one guy who said, well, Samson never broke the Nazirite vow because he didn't cut his own. Oh, that's jumping ahead, but we'll get there, okay? I'm not going to sit here and read into the text that he broke the vow here. I'm going to go ahead and tell you my belief as I read through all of this. I think he broke the vow many, many times in his life. I think he did. I think here's a young guy, he's at the vineyard, he may have eaten a grape. That's all he did, ate a grape. But again, he broke the vow. Doesn't say he did it. My guess is he probably broke vow number 1 right here, broke it one time. But we're going to get into some more, okay? And the whole reason that I'm preaching on Samson today, it comes in verse 3. So we'll back up a little bit. And this is mistake number 2. I'm going to get going here in a second. I know I'm already probably halfway through my time, but we're like a couple verses in. And we've got 5 chapters to go here, people. We're going to get moving. But this is the whole reason I preached on it today. In verse 3, I believe it is, he sees a girl, and so he goes back to his father and he says, "Get her for me, for she is right in my eyes." And that's, quote, she is right in my eyes. Now, Samson would have known he wasn't supposed to marry outside the nation of Israel. They were told that many times. The men were supposed to marry within the nation of Israel. His parents would have known it. In fact, his parents say to him, "Hey, isn't there a girl in Israel that you'd like to marry?" He's like, "Nope, I want that one." So I don't know why, but his dad goes along with it, and his dad basically sets up the marriage for him, okay? But I'm sitting there thinking, we do this. What is right in his eyes, we rationalize our choices. We rationalize what could be sin as being okay. And it's not even sometimes that we get to the point where we're lying to ourselves. We're like, "No, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyhow." No, we get to the point, you see, it is right in his eyes. I mean, his view of right or wrong, and I say these things don't build on each other, but I'm going to say, I think number 2 here, mistake number 2 is building on mistake number 1. You get led into temptation, you get led into sin. Mistake number 2 is you get this mindset shift that you get this own version of right and wrong in your mind, and you think it's from God, you think it's right or wrong, it seems right to you, it feels right to you, but it's not. And this is talked about many, many times in the Bible, this whole idea. Solomon writes in the book of Proverbs, writes multiple proverbs about this. Proverbs 12:15, "The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice." 16:2, "All of the ways of man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord waits the spirit." 21:2, "Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart." And this seems to be a big issue in the world today, right? I mean, you see it all the time. You see people who justify whatever they want. They look through the world as the lens of what they think is right or wrong. And God says specifically, that's how a fool looks at the world. That's how a fool thinks. And I'm here to tell you that, we're prone to do this on our own too. Think we know what's right for us. We think right or wrong. But if you don't kind of fact check everything against the Bible, then you can find yourself in this whole, "I think this is right, this seems good to me," And one example, I don't mean to pick on anybody. I can say this to y'all because the people I'm going to be talking to aren't here today, I mean, one thing that came to mind that people do is, "Well, I don't need to go to church. I'm a Christian, but I don't need to go to church. I don't need to surround myself with a body of believers. I don't need to get in community with other people and get into sharing life with others. They can think I'm more of a loner, and God wouldn't have made me this way if he really wanted me to do that. Or I'm too busy in life, and if you really knew what my life was and what I got going on, then," people, they're going to come up with it in their mind, and they're going to justify it, they're going to rationalize it, and it's why it's right for them. It happens all the time. Now, I'm a Star Wars guy. I've seen all the movies. I'm going to go see the next one. one great thing about Joel and I is we kind of grew up in a household where my dad would pull things out of Star Wars and, use those as quotes to life lessons and whatnot. I even named my son's soccer team when they were really young, the Jedi Forces, and he's now 14, 15 years old almost, and we're still going by that name, so people make fun of it, but it's cool. And so, but there's a line in the story of Star Wars that says, after, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, man, it's too late. It says, Darth Vader tells Luke that he's his father, and Luke's like, no, but then he says, search your feelings for you know it to be true. Now I'm here to tell you, if that's your kind of philosophy in life, to search your feelings for what's true, we got to talk afterwards, okay? Because something could be wrong. Something is wrong, let me tell you that. But despite Samson being wrong place, rationalized in his answer, it's kind of here at the vineyard that we see the strength, the superhuman strength come on him for the first time. And we're about to start flying through this here, okay? So we're about to see God hasn't abandoned Samson for just one mistake. We're about to see these series of mistakes that he makes. So it comes upon him, while he's in the vineyard, this lion basically comes out and attacks him. And Samson, the Spirit of the Lord comes on him, and Samson just, with his strength, basically just tears the lion to pieces. What's funny to me, I got to interject this, the funniest part of the whole story to me almost, it doesn't just say that he ripped the lion to pieces, it says he tore the lion to pieces as one would tear a young goat. And I'm sitting there thinking, that's just kind of funny, right? I mean, I'm going to go tear a young goat to pieces, I'm sure to them it made perfect sense, with sacrifices and whatnot, but it just kind of seems funny, like I'm going to go out and tear a young goat later today, So, I don't know. But it says, so it tears it to pieces, okay? And a few days later, he's going back by, and he goes past the dead lion, and he walks up to the dead lion, and there's some debate about whether or not being around a dead animal is actually breaking the vow. Some people say you have to be around a dead human body. I'm going to say I think he breaks the vow here of being around a dead body. I'll tell you why in just a second. But he walks up, sees a beehive in the carcass of the dead lion, reaches in, grabs honey, he eats the honey, and then he takes some of the honey and he gives it to his parents. Why I think he broke the vow is because it specifically says he made it a point not to tell his parents where he got the honey. I think the reason he didn't want to tell his parents, he knew he wasn't supposed to be around the dead lion, didn't want a lecture from mom and dad basically about why he did what was wrong. And this is mistake number 3 that we're about to see. Again, I promise you I'm going to go through these. Mistake number 3 is he's about to make serious choices, and he's about to assume that his disobedience will never cost him, that he will never suffer consequences from his sin. And this happens to us. I mean, if you get away with something long enough, you think it's not that bad, it must not be that bad. I'm okay, I can get away with it. And so let's start kind of going through here his life, okay? Next, he goes to and again, all these choices he makes, not necessarily sin, but he's about to make some mistakes, things that he probably shouldn't be doing. Next, the wedding feast finally comes about. He wanted to marry that girl. They set up the wedding, and so it's this several-day feast. Y'all remember the first miracle that Jesus did where he turned the water into wine? That was at one of these wedding feasts. It was a 7-day feast, basically, and during that feast, they drank so much wine that they ran out that they basically go to Jesus and say, hey, we need more wine, so Jesus turns the water into wine. That's what happened. Well, this feast, I don't think is any different. It says it was a feast as young men do. It's just a feast as young men do. Doesn't say it's any different. I'm guessing there's a lot of wine drinking. I'm guessing Samson may have drank wine. Doesn't say that he does. Wouldn't surprise me if he did, though. Broke the vow, one of the parts of the vow there. But during there, you get this kind of bar-like atmosphere where you get all these guys around, and, Samson's like, hey, let me give you all this little riddle, and let's place a little wager on it. If y'all can get the answer to this riddle, then I'll give all 30 of you a brand new shirt. If y'all cannot answer the riddle, then all of y'all have to buy a brand new shirt for me, and I get 30 shirts. Well, it goes about 4 days, and they don't get the answer, so they go to a soon-to-be wife, and they say, hey, you better get the answer to this riddle and tell us, otherwise we're going to burn you and your dad alive. And okay, so she goes, gets the answer, goes back, tells them. Samson's livid mad. He's just mad that they got the answer to his riddle, which I'll let y'all read the riddle, but it's out of it's out of the eater came something to eat, out of the strong came something sweet. It was him going to the lion and getting honey out of it, was basically it. Anyhow, he's so mad, he walks 30 miles Timnah to a town called Ashkelon. I think the only reason he stopped in Ashkelon is because it's on the coast. He probably had to stop. And so, but when he's in Ashkelon, he's gone basically a marathon, livid mad. What he does is he kills 30 people, and I can tell you he definitely breaks the vow here. How do I know? Because he kills 30 men, and he takes their shirts off of them, and of their corpses, basically. He takes them back, and he gives them to the people to pay his debt. And then, funny thing happens, he goes back to his soon-to-be father-in-law and says, hey, I want my wife now. And he's like, hey, you've been gone a few days, but I didn't think you wanted her anymore, so I married her off to somebody else. And he's like, that makes him mad. So what he does is he goes out, he catches 300 foxes. He ties these foxes, gets them 2 by 2, ties them tail to tail, stuffs a torch and ties a torch to their tails, sets it on fire, and sets the, 150 pairs of foxes through the Philistine town, basically setting everything on fire. Well, that makes the Philistines so mad that they raise an army to go against the nation of Israel. And so they basically go to where the Israelites are camped and said, hey, we're going to attack you, basically, unless you hand Samson over to us. 3,000 Israelites go to Samson and say, hey, can you please turn yourself in? Otherwise, they're going to attack us and kill us all. And so he's like, fine, as long as y'all don't kill me, I'll turn myself in. So he lets them chain him up, bind him, turn him over to him. But as soon as they turn him over, he rips the chains off, grabs the jawbone of a donkey, breaking the vow again, and slaughters 1,000 men with it. That time he sings a little song to himself, heaps upon heaps. I killed 1,000 men, basically, is what he says. So you kind of getting the idea that we got a man who may be a little out of control, may be going down a wrong path in life, making some poor choices. Whatnot. It's where we're going, right? I mean, y'all see it. And I think sin is kind of like that in life, right? I mean, you get on this path, you don't even realize it. I mean, it could have started with eating a grape in a vineyard, right? And that's what sin's like. You have this little pet lion, right? I mean, you started, it's all right. I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm rational, it's not bad, it's not hurting me. I feed that little lion, right? I just feed it. And that lion grows, that lion grows, the lion grows, and now you got a lion, right? And that's where Samson is. He's got a lion next to him, right? Like he's got some issues in his life that, I know he's Samson, forget the super strength, man, but he's got some issues that you or I couldn't deal with, right? I mean, right, you need help, right? What is odd is we get this little moment of clarity in his life, I guess, basically, is after he does this, he kind of goes away and he says, God, I know all my strength comes from you. Thank you for everything you blessed me with, but I'm really thirsty now. Could you please give me a drink? God splits open this rock, water comes out, he drinks, and you'd like to think, good, that's a good place to end the story, right? He's repented. Well, unfortunately, he doesn't repent. And I'll tell y'all, I wish that were the end of the story, but this is, some of us come to this point as well, right? Where we think, God, I know you're God. I'm sorry for what I've done. And so, but that's not repentance. Repentance is not just saying you're sorry for your sin. Repentance is seeing your sin, turning from your sin, and going towards God. Leaving your sin behind, turning from that ways. And that's not what Samson does here. He just had a moment of, hey, I'm sorry. And so then we get to chapter 16. And here's where Delilah, everybody knows Samson and Delilah, right? Here's Delilah comes into the story. And here's where we're going to see, I'll go ahead and give you all, spoiler alert, here's mistake number 4, choice number 4. So let me recap just so y'all know. There's those of you taking notes today. We have walking right up to temptation. We have rationalizing our sin. And we have assuming our consequences or disobedience will not hurt us. And here we have mistake number 4, losing sight of the source of your strength, losing sight of the source of his strength, basically. And we're going to see that here. So we get he goes to a new town, but again, it's a Philistine town, and he's looking for a woman, which, okay, we're not going to get into that. But he finds someone that he likes. Her name is Delilah. He goes in Delilah. I'm assuming it's like a bedroom setting. And Delilah, who is a Philistine woman, says to him, hey, what would make you like any other man? What would make you lose your strength and become like any of us? She's an enemy of the Philistines asking this. And here's where one of two scenarios is about to happen here, okay? Either he knows what's happening and it's like, nothing's ever happened to me in my life. I'm strong enough. I can handle this on my own. I'm going to have a little fun with it. That could be scenario one. Or scenario two, he's in the bedroom with the woman, he's just not even thinking. But basically she asks this, and he says to her, hey, if I get tied with 7 fresh bowstrings, then I'll become like any other man. So he goes to sleep. I'm guessing he passed out because I'm a dad, and as you become a dad, those are your dads, you become a pretty heavy sleeper. You can sleep through a lot of stuff. But if I get tied with 7 fresh bowstrings while I'm asleep, I'm waking up sometime in the middle of it. But he sleeps through the whole thing, and then Delilah starts yelling, hey, the Philistines are upon you. So he breaks free, basically kills a bunch of Philistines at that point in time. At which most of us would say, hey, you'd come to this moment of clarity of, hey, there's this woman who I told, the only person I told, I woke up tired, I'm not going around her again, but he doesn't do that. For some reason, he goes back to her, right? I mean, this is crazy. And so it's got to be awkward the next night, right? Rather than the bedroom. I mean, he's like, hey, that was odd how I told you that story about the 7 fresh bowstrings, and then I wake up for 7 fresh bowstrings, and she's got to be like, yeah, that's weird, isn't it? But obviously, that's not your thing. So what's your thing? And so he says, hey, I can't be tied with a new rope. So lo and behold, he goes to sleep, wakes up, tied with a new rope, but he breaks free, kills 1,000 Philistines. And you're thinking, this is where it kind of goes off the deep end, right? Nobody's this stupid. Nobody's going to make this mistake so many times. I would never do that. Well, let me tell you, we're all that stupid. We all make that mistake several times. How many times in our life do we go to the same sin? How many times in our life do we go back to the same choice that we made that was wrong before? And again, it's unfortunate that Samson lived before Solomon wrote the book of Proverbs, because he could have learned a lot probably from the book of Proverbs. But Solomon writes about that, Proverbs chapter 26. Like a dog that returns to his vomit is a fool who repeats his folly. I'm thinking, we do it over and over again. We commit sins. It could be anything. It could be a little gossip problem. It could be a lust problem. It could be a laziness problem. It could be a working too hard problem. I don't know. It could be anything. I mean, you can think of whatever it is. We know that there are things in our lives that we do over and over again that we shouldn't. And think to yourself, I mean, why? I mean, why do we do it? I don't know. You know, we don't hate the sin in our life. Again, we don't think there are any consequences coming from it. We think that we can handle things on our own, but we return to it. So you get the same thing, happens again, third time. Here he goes back to her and says, hey, my hair can't be tied into this web thing. I didn't really understand this one, but my hair can't be tied into the web. And so goes to sleep, wakes up, hair's tied into the web. And as a kid, I always thought this kind of weird, because you kind of think that his source of the strength is coming from his hair. What if he rips out his hair, and it's like, would he lose his strength then? But he doesn't. And that's just a side note. But breaks free, kills some more Philistines. Fourth time, goes back, and here she's really nagging him. And he says, fine, you know what? My hair's never been shaved. My hair's never been cut. If my hair were ever cut, I'm pretty sure I'd lose my strength. Now, I don't know here, okay? I don't know what's going on in his mind. Let's think about this. Does he really think that the source of his strength is his hair? If you read this story, it just says never cut your hair, and then here's this guy with super strength. I don't know if he's correlated the two together. As a kid, we always kind of put them together, because when hair gets cut, he loses his strength. I don't know if in his mind he thinks that. I don't know if in his mind he does think it, but he thinks, you know what? I vowed 3 things in my life. I broke 2 of them already. Nothing happened. I'll break the 3rd one. Nothing's going to happen either. I kind of think that's what's going on in his mind. Chapter 16, verse 20 says, when the Philistines came upon him this time, he says, I will go out as at other times and shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. Scary part of it all, he didn't even realize that the Lord had left him. But what I want you to see here is what I believe has just happened. Is here at this point, in my opinion, he's broken vow number 1, he's broken vow number 2. Here, he just breaks vow number 3. He had vowed 3 things in his life to set himself apart, 3 things in his life to make himself look differently than everybody else, so that people would be pointed to God. He's now broken the 3rd vow. That's what I think just happened. He broke the 3rd vow, and he doesn't look differently than anybody else in the world. He doesn't look different than a Philistine. He just doesn't look different. He's just an average guy. And he loses his strength and he becomes an average guy. And what I think happened here, I mean, in our lives, we set out, intentionally. We think, hey, I'm going to live differently. I'm going to live differently. And we think that is it. But because of some choices, in life, we sometimes get to a point where we do not look differently than anyone else. And I think that's what's happened with Samson. When you look at it, I really do not believe that he was, we've just been through the story. He was not a guy who was going along fine, makes one mistake, God leaves him. No, he was a man who who first vowed to live differently and then set out making these series of choices, these series of mistakes that took him away from God. And in the end, that led to his demise. Now, Samson eventually was subdued. The Philistines overpowered him. They plucked out his eyes, put him in prison. He didn't even see it coming. Sorry. Sorry, that derailed me. And that's my fear for people is that, that we, you can get, how easy it is to get on this path to the destruction and not even see it, by making these sins. And it's hard to get up here. I get up here, I'm not a perfect person. People who know me close, they know I'm not a perfect person. They know my faults. And sometimes it seems like my faults, I live with them, and I just accept them and I choose them and whatnot. And sometimes I probably do. But as Christians, we're called to live differently. We're called to repent. We're called to hate our sin, turn from our sin, run towards God. So to wrap up here, a couple points of application. First, we serve a loving God. That's the first application. And then we got a God who will forgive. It's not a God that after you've suffered and after you've been tormented, then he'll use you. We've got a God that when you repent of your sin and turn towards him, he offers forgiveness and he offers true life. And anybody who's never made that decision to become a Christian today, to follow after Jesus Christ, there are cards that you're welcome to grab the card and mark that you'd like to make that decision to follow Christ, and we'll follow up with you. But that's the first thing, that we follow a loving God who forgives us of our sins. He does, for those mistakes that we've made in life. Second point of application is wasted gifts. And Samson is exactly that. I look at Samson and you got to stop and think, here's a man who had superhuman strength, and what could he have done for the nation of Israel? What could he have done for God had he not chosen to go his own way and ultimately led to his demise? God was able to still use Samson late in his life, but I'm thinking there could have been so much more for Samson. He could have affected so many more lives, but he wasted that gift. Now, two things I want to say here that I love about Connection Point Church. First reason, the whole reason that I'm here, yes, my brother is the pastor, but the main reason I'm here, I left a church that I loved going to. I thought it was a great church. And the reason I came here is because before my brother started this church, he and I had a conversation, and I was telling him kind of about where I was in life. And he said to me, I promise you at this church we're going to start, you're going to make an eternal difference in people's lives. I don't know that I feel like I've made an eternal difference in a lot of people's lives, but I know this church has. And so I want to use whatever gifts I have to make an eternal difference in people's lives. But one thing I also love is my brother will, from time to time, he'll say these phrases that just resonate with me, that stick with me, and that I think of later on. And one of those is that it's not going to be everybody, but for most of us, our lives are what he says is, our lives are exactly where we have led them to be. And I think that's so true. Whenever I get to a point of ineffectiveness where I'm, not effective for God, I kind of look around and I think, God didn't leave me. The reason I'm ineffective, the reason I'm wasting my gifts is because I've made choices along the way to walk away from God, to break vows that I said that I would live differently, And so I think we're all like that we can sometimes make these choices that lead us away from God and lead us to becoming ineffective. And so, none of this was earth-shattering today. None of this was just, that earth-shattering. It's common sense. We all know it, right? That we need to turn towards God. And so we need to do that. We need to recognize these small things in our life and turn from those sins and turn towards God. I'm going to wrap up with this, that in the coming weeks, you're going to hear more about the future of Connection Point Church and what God has ahead for us. And let me tell you, there are going to be a lot of opportunities to serve. There are going to be a lot of opportunities to make an eternal difference for those in our community, those in the city of Wiley, Saxe, Murphy, Plano, all the surrounding, Rowlett, wherever y'all are from, all the surrounding areas. And so I think during this time of preparation, we all need to be looking at our life. We need to be looking at those little choices that we're making in life, turn from those, repent of those sins, turn towards God, because I think, wouldn't it be amazing? Who knows what God could have done through Samson? Samson never found out what he was truly capable of doing, probably. But I think it'd be awesome to see what God could do through a church of it's currently 100 to 150 people probably, and how he could move throughout the city. If we all were on fire for him, turned from our sins, and truly lived differently, so that they saw this group of people who were truly living differently, and people would look and say, why is God blessing those people? Why is the hand of God appear to be on them? Why do they live differently? And it would draw them to God. So, we all have different gifts, different things that we're able to do for this church, that we're able to give. And, my prayer is that we can just all give to the church, One of the last times I preached on, they let me preach up here like once every other year, maybe once a year at most, basically. And so one of the last times I preached, it's been a couple of years ago, I preached on Jesus feeding the 5,000. And then my favorite part of that story was this little boy who gave his five fish and 2 loaves of bread, basically, to Jesus to be used. And the whole miracle of Jesus feeding all those people doesn't happen if that one person doesn't give their gift, if that one person isn't following after God. And that's what I pray for us, is that we're all giving our gifts to this church, that we're all turning from sin and using our gifts for God and not making these same mistakes that basically Samson made that basically led to his demise. So thank you all for letting me talk today. I appreciate it. I hope you all were able to get something out of it. And let me pray. Father God, I thank you so much for Connection Point Church and just all that you've done in this church over the past several years and all that you have planned to do in this church over the coming years. I pray that you would just show everybody here what issues in our life need to be changed, what issues in our life we need to turn over to you, that we need forgiveness for, so that when we go out of here, that we are truly people that are living differently, truly are people who, that when others see us, that they think there's something different about those people. And not that it raises us up, but what those actions do, those actions point people to you. So we thank you for the love you've given us. We thank you for all the blessings you've given us. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.